The sound is ready also. Okay. Should I start? Okay. Hi, I'm Pawel Gronkiewicz. I came here from Germany to talk about Cloud Octopus and CloudLobster. And I'd like to ask you, like, how do you manage your continuous integration and continuous delivery, and how do you manage your infrastructure for it? And I will start by talking a bit about myself. I started as a Java developer in a big corporation, and we had those big projects across multiple locations, multiple countries for banking. And there was the mythical Hudson that no one had access to. And we used Oracle technology that our management thought this cannot be tested. So we had no QA, we had no testers, we had not even one single test. And then I switched to another company, which had even more funny attitude towards quality. And we had our front desk lady written in a protocol as the testing team. So apparently she did all the testing, and this made me think that this is not the way I want to do software. So I decided to switch to a company as a quality assurance engineer and work on Jenkins and quality assurance. And after getting some experience then, I ended at Zalando in Germany. And I have no idea if anyone knows Zalando in Ukraine, probably not. They don't deliver here, but they are like a huge player in Europe. And to call it simple, it's a shop with clothes. Every woman in Europe will know it. If you send your girlfriend to Germany for shopping, she will come with you asking why it isn't in Ukraine. And so maybe some numbers. We have like 16 million customers and 135 million visits every month. And last count was over 9,000 employees. I'm pretty sure it has changed rapidly, because last time I remember we have hired like 60 engineers just this month. And so I'm pretty sure those are totally outdated numbers. And as I'm mentioning it, like I would also like to go to the team that works on those issues and what it means to be a team at Zalando. And those other things, pretty much freedom, innovation, and variety. And we have some German still, but I know that some teams do meetings in Russian, even though we are in the capital of Germany. And freedom usually means that we do whatever technology we want in whatever we want, and pretty much means the newest things. And this is our team mascot, and weekly rotation, and the person that holds that mascot on the desk is a point of contact. So for customers, and technical difficulties. It doesn't want to. Okay, excuse me for that. I have to manually switch to the next slide when I find my. Oh. That's not good. Anyone remembers how to make it full screen without going to the first slide? This will. Oh no, it doesn't work. I hope I don't have to present it this way. You have any idea how to make it? I think you he closed the window, so oh. No, I have to. I have tested it like 10 times even in the morning, and it worked flawlessly. I did this even a few minutes before the slides. And technology, right? It's starting. Okay, I'm sorry for that. Here, I want to start here. Yeah. Okay, now we are back to action. And this is a short overview how like Zalando old technology looks like, just for illustration. You don't have to take a closer look. And as I'm part of a team responsible for providing continuous integration and delivery for an entire company, it means every single component there has to be tested and automated. And we had an old fancy setup with 3 Jenkins masters running over 100 executors and over 5,000 jobs. And everything was totally automated, so there was some magic behind. So every time you would commit to a Git repository, it would get automatically detected by a deployment tool. Then it would scan everything and put it into database. And then there would be another fancy job running in the background, checking every hour for changes in database. And then it would go through XML templates and create a job for you out of your project, even if you didn't ask for it, even if you didn't want to test it. And it was quite obvious that with a growing company, it just cannot work. And this is the result slide from our Jenkins. This is a queue. It's over 2,000 items in the queue. And this was actually on a slow day. I think we have reached the peak of 8,000 jobs in the queue. And you can imagine that for a team that has a service and customers, how happy they were. And we had to work on a solution. And the obvious solution was cloud and going elastic. And we built a prototype that worked on a pure AWS account using EC2 instances, and it would configure everything. So we were able to provide Jenkins on demand for every team. And it seems like a nice working solution, but it was just a prototype. And as you can imagine, try to put huge traffic through a street like that, just couldn't scale. And I will show you what was the reason for not scaling. This is the growth of Zalando. And those numbers are engineers, people that create code. And the blue line is the amount of applications we create and maintain. And this looks fairly okay, right? But somehow we decided to accelerate the growth a bit recently. And this is current status. Just this year, the change. And that's when the company decided to go to cloud and change how everything works. We have created our own cloud, AWS cloud implementation using Stabs.io. Feel free to take a look if you are thinking about going to the cloud and don't want to do all the dirty work behind it. This can be the solution, open source. And as an overview of how simple it is, don't read it, just use it as a general idea of how it is to implement AWS cloud. And the general setup that we have is that we give one AWS account for every team, and we use everything on Docker. And right now we have, I think, over 100 AWS accounts. And all of them want to do continuous integration. And all of them want to deploy to their accounts and don't be interrupted by any other team. That's why we decided to work on a new solution and implement something that will be for the teams. And this is how CloudLobster was created. And what is CloudLobster? This is pretty much an API for self-service. So instead of creating a ticket for the team to get a Jenkins or do anything related, like please restart as a Jenkins, install as a plugin, or I don't see the logs, or I have no idea what's going on. You're just requesting permissions to get your own Jenkins, manage it, and do everything by yourself. And this API runs on the cloud, which means there are no throttling issues, there are no security issues. You simply call the API, it talks directly from AWS to AWS, and a few minutes later, you have your own Jenkins pre-configured with all plugins, with all security settings, access to your resources, access to deployment to your AWS account. And when it comes to technology, Java, everyone likes Java, right? And Java 8 using Spring, and we're using AWS Java API for calling. And everything is Docker-based, which means our Jenkins is Docker-based, our slaves are Docker-based, and yeah, Docker-based. And maybe a very short overview about how it works. Pretty much you as a user talk to CloudLobster, then some magic in the background, then it talks to AWS, and the user gets back Jenkins. And this is actually all that matters for the end users. They don't care what the magic is. And if someone wants a bit more explanation, we are actually creating CloudFormation stacks for every new Jenkins, which creates load balancers, auto-scaling groups, launch configurations in the background, S3 buckets for storing credentials, then application scopes for accessing those credentials, and everything like that, which is pretty much just an implementation detail. And we have right now over 50 Jenkins masters running on AWS accounts, which together with slaves and everything else sums up to a few hundred EC2 instances. And we decided that it should be open sourced, and we are working on it right now. And this is very like a Zalando specific implementation. And what people actually may want is to use something else, like why just Jenkins? Why not any other CI system? And we are working on making the architecture open in such a way that you can deploy any continuous integration server if you want. I guess TeamCity is quite popular here, and we are also working with Travis and Stabs2Go, which is an implementation of Go continuous integration server, and anything pretty much you desire with one pull request made to the CloudLobster. And then we also thought, why only continuous integration? Because when you do continuous integration, you actually use so many other things. You want to have code metrics, code quality. And in this case, you may want like Selenium farm or SonarQube server. And this actually should also support it. And this is what we are planning to do. And we are working on building a plugin-based API with modular also interface, dynamically built. And we also want to provide full experience. And this also means giving the slaves for every Jenkins master. And this is pretty much another API that we work at. And this is Cloud Octopus and the slave overload. So it has a title. It doesn't have a dedicated logo yet. And this is an API that will provide slaves or executor or workers or however they're called in the CI server on demand, also working on cloud based on Docker, totally clean for every run. So right now we have a Jenkins plugin that talks to the API, and the way it works, you build your own Docker image, you define your EC2 instance size on AWS, and you get your slave. And you can add this slave to your Jenkins or TeamCity and specify for your job what kind of slave you want. And then the plugin will talk directly to the Cloud Octopus API. Cloud Octopus will either dispatch a slave, clean slave, by restarting Docker container, or create a new one by pulling the Docker image from the private Docker registry, launching it on a specified EC2 instance, and then in some seconds you can run your job on this particular slave, just like that. And actually I'm much faster with my slides. I'm almost over for some weird reason. And for some important stuff, we are planning to create stickers with CloudLobster and Cloud Octopus, maybe also t-shirts. It's okay for vegetarians, so if you don't like seafood, you can still use it. And as I started with my question, how do you manage your CI? Like, if you don't have a good answer, then maybe you should think about CloudLobster and Cloud Octopus. We are going to open source it. It's an ongoing process. Hopefully it's a few weeks away, and it will be on GitHub.Zalando. And some details. And actually I'm done. Actually I'm done. So it was way too fast. Yeah. If you have some questions, please ask. Yes. We are running on Stabs. If you never heard, like it's an entire platform for mostly for auditing purposes. So instead of running Docker containers directly, we run them all certified AMI. So if you wanted to have something like that, you would have to specify some kind of baseline AMI that has, if your company requires it, like audit compliance things, and then there's another layer which is a Docker level, and there we run a Docker. We run an agent inside the Docker image, and we configure the Docker image after pulling it from private registry. And we are actually working on having it run just on pure EC2 instances or on the Docker container service from AWS. That's actually the new tool we are planning to create. It's a code named Cloud Snail, but as we haven't started working on it yet, I did not want to include it in the presentation. But we are planning to gather every possible point of data, then store them and process like a big data with dashboards and alerting and monitoring. And it will include information not only about the health status of the nodes, but also about things like how long it takes to build something or test statistics for project or branch. Jenkins is dedicated to a team that requests it. We are actually mostly giving out Jenkins with a full freedom to do anything you want. and it's actually up to a team to make the infrastructure. You will get the slaves for executing the jobs that can test and deploy. In our case, we have a dedicated deployment agent that you have one running on your AWS account, and then you have access to this agent from this particular Jenkins, and this agent has permissions on that account to create CloudFormation stacks, which means creating entire stack on AWS for deployment, and it's also Docker based. And this is part of the Stabs IO infrastructure. Anything else? We are planning to release the alpha version in December. It was planned to be ready by now, but the deadline, by the end of this month, we want to have alpha version, and in the beginning of December, it should be open source on github.com under CloudLobster name. Okay. Thank you, Dan. I have some Zalando stickers if anyone is interested. Not as fancy as CloudLobster, but okay, thank you.